Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. My name is Chris Nelly. I'm the training and development partner here at Call Tracking Metrics, and we are really excited to have you guys all join us today while we do our 5 ways to use AI, Ask AI in sales and marketing. So before we get into it and we get started, you'll see the number on the screen, 24049-ASK-AI. If you go ahead and text a question to Ask AI via that number, you'll actually get a link back that'll provide you some CTM swag. So at this time, I encourage you, if you're here, go ahead and text that number. You can text any question you want and get a link for some swag.
That's pretty cool.
Right?
Yeah.
Powered by ChatGPT.
That's right.
That's super cool, guys.
So
As we
make sure,
move on, Dan posted the number in the chat as well. Sorry,
that's
Chris.
exactly what I was about to say, that we were going to post that number in the chat. No, it was perfect. That was perfect. So just a few housekeeping things as we get started. There are a couple functions here in the platform we want to make you guys all aware of. First off is the chat function. We do have a member of our sales team, Dan, standing by, monitoring the chat. So if you guys have questions for us, go ahead and put them in there. Dan will be sure to take a look at that. As I mentioned, the webinar is being recorded. As long as you register, we'll go ahead and make sure you get a copy of this after the fact. You'll also notice the Q&A, which once again, towards the end of this webinar, we're going to open up the floor for everyone to ask questions. And lastly, the polls. We are going to have you guys answer a few poll questions. So just make sure that you are looking at that. Today, here's who we have. Myself, as I said, my name is Chris Nelly, training partner. We have one of our CEOs and co-founder, Mr. Todd Fisher, with us, and Mr. Jason Smith, one of our sales engineers here. So as we get into it, here's one of those polls that we were talking about. How familiar are you with ChatGPT? So if you look in the Zoom bar, you should be able to see the poll button. Go ahead and let us know how you stand on that. That's an interesting split so far. All right, give everyone just another moment on that.
I'm liking the Ask AI responses. It's funny.
Yeah, so it looks like about half folks here have read about it. Got a couple that say they're an expert, a few that said not much really, and of course there's 4% who said, what's ChatGPT? So I think that is fantastic. Thank you everyone for chiming in with that. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand things off to Jason here, who's going to lead us.
Thanks, Chris. So as Chris said, we're super excited to be able to show off this game-changing capability. I truly believe this is going to revolutionize how people spend their time at work, and certainly how they spend their time inside of call tracking metrics. So today, what I wanted to go over is a brief history. How did we get here? What can it do? What have we tried so far? What are we doing with ChatGPT? And how do CTM users start taking advantage of it today? I want to show you, as the webinar would imply, 5 ways that you can instantly start using Ask AI within your call tracking metrics account. So AI, the idea of an artificial intelligence, has been around for a long time. The term itself, artificial intelligence, was coined by a man named John McCarthy and his colleagues at MIT way back in 1956. And some slow rolling changes there through the years, but more recently there's been a rapid acceleration in language models and generative AI, specifically in the 2000s here, the generative AI large language model arms race is still very much heating up, spawning lots of really cool innovations. Most recently, and just recently, OpenAI crushed a huge record and has estimated to have reached 100 million monthly active users in January, just 2 months after its launch, making it the fastest growing consumer application in history, blowing away the likes of like MySpace and Facebook and Twitter and those platforms that are very widely adopted. March 15th, OpenAI made ChatGPT, aka GPT 3.5 Turbo APIs available. Also that same day, they provided a wait list for access to their GPT-4 APIs. Today, if you're like me, every day you're seeing dozens of mentions of ChatGPT in your news feeds. We're seeing tons of new companies popping up, new solutions being offered, new roles like prompt engineers that are being highly sought after and all of a sudden in very high demand. So what does all of this mean? What does this rolling mass mean for CTM users? How do we take this artificial intelligence and use it with marketing attribution and phone system capabilities that you get from CTM? So I'll tell a little story about what we did and some of the first things that we did in our experimenting with these API endpoints. As soon as we could get our hands on them, we did, and we started testing these after we asked the existential questions of what is the meaning of life, the universe, and everything. Spoiler alert, it's 42. And when will the world end? After we got those questions out of the way, then we started to figure out what parts of an activity, our calls, our texts, our chats, the forms, the things that you use every day in call tracking metrics, what parts of those activities could we input to a ChatGPT API endpoint, and what could we do with the output? How do we make that valuable for businesses using our service? One of the first things that I figured out was that I could use a CTM webhook to post the body of these inbound text messages to the OpenAI completion model at the time, or GPT-3, and then using the CTM API, I could respond back to that person via SMS with the output that was generated from OpenAI. And that's kind of the promo that Chris talked about at the beginning here, that I'm seeing people interact with, and hopefully you're seeing those answers come back to you being output from ChatGPT. This is a cool kind of parlor trick. It's great for promos like this without any coaching of the model, without any contextual threaded conversation capabilities. It really doesn't differentiate itself much more than what you could get, from the top result in any Google search that's on just about every device available today. Where we really started to see something valuable is when we took the call or chat transcriptions from our call tracking metrics activities and started including those in the prompt that we send to ChatGPT. One of the first use cases we tested with including those transcripts was to ask ChatGPT to give us the sentiment of this transcription. And without any coaching or additional context, we were pretty amazed at how thoughtful and deep the analysis was in this output that we would get from ChatGPT, just saying, hey, read this script and tell me how the parties are feeling. So that was really kind of eye-opening, and that kind of shaped, where we've come and where we ended up here today, talking to all of you fine people. So with that in mind, I'd like to look at the current options that are available for sending the CTM data to be evaluated by ChatGPT. But before I switch over to the screen sharing, I think Chris has got another poll for you.
Yeah, let's get this poll up for everyone. All right. So, what teams do you think can benefit the most from AI and ChatGPT? Let's go ahead and open this up for everyone. Sales, obviously. Marketing could use the help. Development, duh, or all of them? I like development, duh, personally. Right now, we are looking at hands across the board, all of them.
Yeah. I can't vote, but that's my impression.
But that would be,
I vote
would
too.
that be your vote?
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and close that up. And yeah, that seems to be the definitive with 87%. People say all of them.
Awesome.
Back to you, Jason.
Cool. I am gonna take the screen from you here.
Yes, sir.
So this is the Chat GPT playground area in OpenAI. So I thought for context, we'll show these components and then we'll show how they translate inside of call tracking metrics. So in the playground area here, I have a system prompt, and this is where I provide context to the AI bots. I'm telling them what personality I want them to take on. We've seen some really cool use cases. The one that they start with the default is you are a helpful assistant, but giving the AI bot a role and a title can really help shape the responses. And then telling it other things, how you expect the output to be formatted. I only want you to answer with a numeric value. I want you to provide a bulleted or a numbered list of the items that you're spitting out. You know, all of these things can influence the output that you get. The next area here is the user input. This is the question that we're asking. What are we prompting ChatGPT to do? And then you see here in my example, I'm telling it, you are Wayne, I am Garth. When I tell you to party on, Wayne, you respond party on, Garth, and a guitar emoji. And when I hit submit, it followed my instructions beautifully. I said party on, Wayne. And then the GPT response or the output is reflected here. It told me party on, Garth, with a guitar emoji, exactly as it was instructed to do. So if we take these elements and we go into call tracking metrics now, and I am in a new trigger, I think this is where we've started, where most people are going to interact with our AskAI feature, but there will be other areas. Under flows and then triggers, I created a new trigger. And then in the workflows, I have an action that is AskAI. And so when I look at this AskAI trigger, I see here the input. This is my question that we're asking. The idea in call tracking metrics is we're going to take that question, and when we get the output from ChatGPT, we're going to assign that to a custom field. So any type of CTM field that you might use, our standard fields, our custom fields, whether that's an email address field, a date field. Behind the scenes, we're doing some engineering with the prompt responses to make sure that they fit into our specific field types. You can imagine if we're asking for something like a sentiment or a summary, then that is going to be, just a blob of text, and it's kind of hard to report on. But if you're pushing that to like a Boolean field or a number field, then it has some values, the ability to kind of tally up and be counted as part of a whole in your larger reporting. If we expand the build prompt, there's a nice test area here for us to use. We see where we can find an activity, we can test the prompt and see the example output that would be sent to our custom field. Under the advanced options, first off, I'll start from the bottom, is the system prompt. So this is where we provide that context. This is where we tell it that you are Wayne and I am Garth, or whatever else you want your AI assistant to be. And then with call tracking metrics, with this question, with the system prompt, by default, we are including a transcription of an activity that gets sent with this. So we're taking our question, and in most cases, we're asking this something about that transcript. We want to find out things about that transcription, but you have the option here. If you do not want to use our activity, then you can just not use it. You cannot use the transcript. So you might do that if you wanted to do things like tell me the nearest location based on the caller's postal code or something to that effect, where the transcript doesn't really provide any additional context to our output. As I said, we're doing some refining to the answers to get it to fit into our custom field types. If you don't want to use any of our refinements, you can elect not to and then write your own system prompt or do your own refining on the answers. Don't use our predefined refinements. Other things to consider here is which side of the conversation. So we can send all of the dialogue. We want ChatGPT to analyze both sides of the conversation, our caller and our agent, or we can tell it we're just interested in you evaluating the contact side, the caller side, or the agent side. We just want to evaluate what our agent's saying. We don't really need the context of what the caller is saying for our objective here. And then with the current model that we're using, the GPT 3.5, there is a limit on the amount of tokens or words that can be included. So that is 4,096, I believe. And at about 15, 20 minutes worth of transcription, you're going to find that that's going to start being more than 4,096 words. So in those scenarios, for those longer calls, you can define which part of the conversation we'll use. We'll chunk that transcript into sections that fit the size requirements, and you can choose, do I want to send the first part of my activity, the middle part, or the last part? And you can imagine, depending on what you're trying to do with the output here, a lot of times you can determine the sentiment or the intent of a call based on the first part of the conversation. That's probably going to come out in the first few minutes. Or if I'm looking to confirm whether my agent made a sale, did they read a confirmation code or something like that, that's maybe more likely to happen in the last part of a conversation. So you can kind of tell us which part we should use in the event that we exceed the maximum amount of tokens that GPT will accept. So before I dive into showing you some examples, 5 to be exact, I wanted to talk about some of the best practices for using this, what we found works, and some of the things that don't work. So the first is to turn transcriptions on. Again, this works best when you have your transcriptions enabled and we have a text log of a call or a chat or even a text to send to ChatGPT. So with the transcriptions on, we'll be assured to have that every time. Now you do have the ability to transcribe a phone call with a trigger after the fact, after it's occurred, as long as you have the call recording. But just be advised, when we transcribe it after the fact, it's going to be doing transcription off of a single channel call recording. So when we have transcriptions turned on, we're getting a dual channel, so it's diarized and we can tell between the caller and the agent. But if you transcribe it after the fact, it's transcribing off of a single channel. So be aware of that. What we've seen is it tends to still be pretty forgiving with a single channel, and it gets it right in a lot of cases, but just be advised if you're going back and transcribing old calls after the fact to feed it to ChatGPT, it may get confused around who's the agent and who's the caller. As far as when to run the CTM trigger, we've got a lot of different options, and what we've found works best is when you run this when the transcript is ready. That's the most consistent trigger that is going to ensure that we're always going to have something to send along. What we don't want is to send something to ChatGPT and there's no transcription available for it to analyze. Some other advice is to be as specific as possible, provide context around your questions in the system prompt, and test different variations. A little tweak of wording can have a big impact on your output. And then data privacy. I saw someone in the chat mention this. You should be careful around what you send to ChatGPT today. Unfortunately, this is not yet HIPAA compliant with this solution. So if your calls have sensitive data, personal health information, credit cards, you shouldn't post those to ChatGPT in this current state. We're pursuing a business associate agreement with OpenAI that would allow us to be HIPAA compliant. It's just not there quite yet, but we feel pretty comfortable with the current state of the OpenAI data privacy agreement. In March, they made 2 major changes that made us feel even better, in that you have to opt in for them to use your data to train their models, which we have not done with our customer data. And they also have a retention policy where they delete everything after 30 days unless they get subpoenaed for it by law enforcement. And then the last piece of advice is it's dangerous to go alone. Don't feel like you have to do this on your own. Our professional services team is taking on paid projects to help customers build out their AskAI strategy. So contact your CTM account manager to put together a specific scope of work and get started using this right away. But with that, what I'd like to do now is show you some easy real life examples that you could implement right away, and I think find some good value in this. So I'm gonna stop sharing very briefly and pull up a test activity. Here we go. So we've got in the test activity, I put my activity ID in there. I've got a role play sample call that I did with one of our sales reps. You see the transcript loads here. I'm not providing any context for this demo. And let's talk about 5 different use cases. So with this call, one of the first things that we could do is say, provide a summary of this call transcript. This was a call that went about 8 or 9 minutes, just talking about different features of call tracking metrics. And I can, provide this very general description. We see it run, and we see the summary. It boiled down that 8-minute conversation into a paragraph here saying, Jason Smith, I was pretending to be the owner of a digital marketing agency specializing in home service companies, contacted Brandon, our sales rep, to inquire about call tracking metrics. It mentions the features I talked about and the follow-up items that Brandon committed to me. So instantly, it boiled down that conversation into this summary. You can imagine taking this summary if you're providing an export of call tracking metrics call data. This could be just included as a column on that CSV export. If call tracking metrics is linked to your CRM, this field that we're outputting to could be mapped to your CRM record. So this is automatically being updated in Salesforce or HubSpot or wherever you want it to land. Next thing we'll look at here is a sentiment. So again, this is one of the first things that we tried here, and I think it is amazing. It's very thoughtful for artificial intelligence, a robot. It's pretty forgiving on misspelling too, but try to do my best. So I ask it to describe the sentiment of this call transcript. We see it processes, and then we get our output. The sentiment of this call transcript is positive and professional. The speaker is polite and friendly, and he expresses interest in the product and services offered by the person he's speaking with. So pretty good and pretty thoughtful. Again, with some additional coaching and system prompting, we can tell it, coach it around the response that we get. What things specifically are we looking for in a sentiment? What are good sentiments? What are bad sentiments from our sales rep? But without any coaching at all, I think the output is pretty impactful. Another one that I love and is super powerful is call scoring. So taking this call, I'm talking to a sales rep, and I can ask the AI to rate the performance of the sales rep. And if I just provide it this output, it's going to give me a pretty big paragraph and its thoughts. But another thing I can do is I can tell it to use a scale of 1 to 5 to grade this performance. And then again, using the system prompt, I can provide all kinds of context around what I deem as a high scoring or high performing salesperson. Score it higher if my sales rep does or says all of these things in the conversation, score it lower if we hear the caller or the sales rep saying these things. We don't service your area, or we don't have a product that meets those needs, or you've got the wrong number. We can provide those kinds of context and help use that to shape the score here. So if I run this and I ask it to score Brandon's performance on this phone call, thinks about it, and it rates the performance of the sales rep 4 out of 5. Not too bad. The sales rep was polite, introduced himself and his company. He asked the prospect if he had a few seconds to talk. He asked relevant questions. And then down here, what could he have done better? The sales rep could have been more engaging and enthusiastic in his tone of voice and build a stronger rapport with the prospect. So pretty good with no coaching or context. It's evaluated this call. It's given it a score. Again, if you were outputting this to any of our scoring fields, we have a star rating. We will shape the response to match that to our 1 through 5 star rating fields. And then you can imagine using this automatic scoring to influence your Google Ads conversions or the events that we send into Google Analytics or Microsoft. So maybe we want to give a higher value with the conversions that we send to Google Ads. If my sales rep, scored a 4 or 5, or if the call was scored a 4 or 5, and a lower value if it's scored 1 or 2. Another cool use case here is classifying activities. Was this a new sales inquiry or an existing customer looking for help? Or if I'm a law firm and I do personal injury and divorce and family law, what area of law was this call about? And asking AI, it'll look at the transcript and assess that pretty intuitively and tell us. So plug that in here. Was this a new sales inquiry or an existing customer looking for help? And in my scenario, I was very much playing a new sales inquiry. So hopefully that's what OpenAI responds with, and that's what we got. So because it was a new caller, it knows I'm a new sales inquiry, versus if I was calling asking about my existing account and things like that, it would have identified me as an existing customer or a tech support call.
I think it might be worth mentioning here as well, Jason. So a lot of people will often want to be able to classify a new caller, right? So they're always thinking like, hey, I want a new caller. So when is the new caller? Well, this simple classification question could be used to set a Boolean field, custom Boolean field on the call record itself. And then instead of basing your reports on how many new callers did we get, you could base it on how many new sales inquiries, right? Which is more impactful, because I might be a repeat purchaser to your service, right?
Yeah.
It's more meaningful way of thinking about it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then the last use case that I wanted to highlight here today was extracting information. It's extremely powerful in extracting specific details from these transcripts. So a lot of times there's, the one important detail that we need to get out of the phone call that we would otherwise have to listen to the whole recording, read the whole transcript to get to that part of it. But using AskAI, we can extract just about any specific item that you would want that might be mentioned in the phone call and push that to a custom field, push it to your CRM. So in this example, we can ask it, what was the email address the caller gave? And right, here's my output. The email address the caller gave is jason@calltrackingmetrics.com, as I read to Brandon at the end of my phone call here for follow-up. So, without any coaching or context or a specific email field type, it gives me a complete sentence, but this could be pushed to an email field with just the email, and then that can be used, to create your new Salesforce lead or update a HubSpot record. Another cool example of this is list the features the caller is interested in. So it'll extract from the conversation all the specific features that I asked Brandon about in our role play. It lists them out: the Google Ads integration, our API availability, pricing structure. And again, with some coaching, I might provide a list of all of the call tracking metrics features in the system prompt and tell it, I want you to look out for when these features are mentioned, and it'll refine the answers even more. So those are, I think, 5 quick, impactful ways that you can save time, that you can really enhance and optimize the workflows and automations you're already using with call tracking metrics. We just launched a promo through the end of May for you to try this out. So in your call tracking metrics account, in this test prompt, we're going to give you the first 50 asks for free. You won't be charged to use those, to try this out, put it in production. We'd love to hear your feedback. We'd love to hear your ideas. What's your great idea for using this? Because I don't think that we've even scratched the surface with all the cool stuff and all the innovations that are going to come out of this kind of technology. And then additionally, if you're interested in seeing this in action, your CTM account team is very well versed. They're ready to do a side demo for you individually, talk about your specific use case. If you're not already a call tracking metrics customer, you can contact our sales team. We're happy to take you through a demo and show you all of the capabilities or talk through your specific use case. So with that, I'm going to throw it back to Chris. I think he's got another poll for us.
I do. So thank you so much, Jason. Generally appreciate that demo. So now we're going to open up another poll for everyone here. Is what do you see as the biggest benefit of adding AI tools to your everyday work? Greater efficiency and productivity, enhanced customer experience, more money from revenue and sales, or better data analysis and insights.
All of the above?
Yeah, right. Right now, it looks like it's a pretty even split. All right. So yeah, looks like we were pretty split between greater efficiency and productivity and better data analysis and insights. Thank you everyone for participating there. All right. So with that in mind, I'd like to reintroduce once again one of the co-founders and CEO of Call Tracking Metrics, Mr. Todd Fisher. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm good. This is pretty exciting. Great to see the reaction folks are having and the questions that are being asked. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Todd, outside of questions that other customers are going to ask you, we actually did have a few here we wanted to get your insight on. The first would be, how can AI be integrated into existing marketing and sales systems to improve customer engagement and lead generation when it gets more sophisticated?
Wow. So how does it get incorporated into the sales cycle and the lead generation process? Well, so I think that I think what AskAI has demonstrated is that you can very much ask specific questions that will enhance your ability to know and understand the value of a conversation, which in turn can inform, your marketing efforts. So if you know what conversations are performing well, then from that insight, you can better allocate your funds to target your ads even more precisely. I think that you can use it obviously as a tool, as a mechanism to identify problematic phone calls to enhance your ability to coach the team, the sales team answering calls. You could find insights from those conversations that will improve the effectiveness of that sales team over time. You can get one idea, we haven't implemented this, but one idea was that, based on all past conversation history and the quality of conversion information you're seeing, generate maybe ad copy, or get advice about ad copy. Like, could you get copy like basically recommended advertisements, like in Google Ads? Could we push? We would recommend that to get more calls like this, you create ads that look like this. Something kind of like that. A feature like that might be kind of neat. I don't know if people would want that, but I could see it being possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, somebody said yes. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, I
so
actually did that yesterday. I took some notes. So
awesome.
The prompt I gave it is, your digital marketer. Based on the transcript, you need to decide if the outcome was positive or negative. I gave it some ideas of what those are, and then you will review the call transcript, see if it's a good fit, and then write ad copy and bulleted list of similar keywords to attract visitors accordingly based on the conversation. So if it's good call outcome, we want to attract more visitors like this. If it's a bad outcome, we want to attract fewer visitors like this. And it did an amazing job of writing ad copy based on a call and giving me keywords that I should bid on, to attract more callers like that.
So we could start to basically imagine auto-generating a report to you guys that pushes recommendations for, and you could choose to use the recommendation or not, but in theory, then these would be pretty decent recommendations. Yeah.
No, that's great.
Yeah. And then I think the other thing would be is, obviously, how do we integrate all of the sort of the wealth of knowledge that is accumulated in the conversation history that you have with, your customers to do things like this, to pull out insightful, maybe targeted advertising information, but then also maybe improve the communications you have directly with the customer. Yeah. I think maybe you had one more question for me, Chris, and then maybe I'll show something that we've been working on, and will be sort of the next iteration of this AI transformation.
Absolutely. So the next question is probably the most common one that you hear when we start talking about AI and getting smarter, which is, do you see this type of AI technology replacing humans or people on a large scale?
Oh yeah. I hear this one a lot. So I'm an optimist. So my opinion is no. I don't see humans getting replaced. I see humans getting better at what they do. And a great example of that is was able to use ChatGPT myself, or GPT-4 really, to write some code. Wrote a chat UI and used it to develop things faster. Was able to effectively get to software engineering problems faster than if I was using Google. So if anything, I think that what we'll see is a pretty amazing transition in our industry that we haven't seen since the late 90s when Google came about, right? So I think that that's pretty exciting. I think it means that there's a whole bunch of opportunity here in front of us. I think we're going to see a whole lot more better generated spam content, which is going to be interesting and hard to fight against. But we also have AI to help us identify it. So I think it's a net positive thing for our industry for sure, and I think society as a whole. I think people will find that if you feel as if your job is in jeopardy, I think it's more like your job will just get more interesting. You'll have more time to do the interesting parts of your job and less of the silly, mundane, boring parts, because the boring parts can be done by an AI. So that's sure. pretty awesome. Plus, I heard we have a labor shortage, so maybe this can help.
Yeah. There you go. And yet, Todd, you said you also had something you wanted to share with the folks here, right? Something that we're working on?
Let me see. Yeah, let me see if I can get my demo here to work. So this is still a work in progress. So the background of this is, imagine if we could connect ChatGPT to your content. So here at Call Tracking Metrics, for example, I took all of our Zendesk Help Center content, and then we also have it connected to all of our conversation history within our account. And then what we could do is we can ask it questions, and it will use that information to provide answers. So it can only access what we can show it. So the way we do this is we can prompt AI in real time to formulate an answer and a response. So what this will eventually become is hopefully a very helpful assistive tool for answering questions quickly and getting answers back to you guys. So I will share this with you guys, and I'd love to see what you guys think. So this is, as you would expect, a chat user interface. I just took a customer's question that came in actually during an all hands meeting just a second ago. And then it actually will provide an answer, but then also we have it go to the reference here. So it points you to one of our help documentations for how to answer that problem. We can also ask it to do some other interesting things, like maybe I'd like you to use AskAI to get the email address from the transcription within the phone call activity record. Then I'd like you to query Salesforce to identify the lead by caller number. And if you find the lead, please update the lead and the activity with the email address you identified. And so now what it's doing is it's actually taking this question, it's identifying what source of example documentation CTM has available to help it understand how to create a response that would be helpful based on my question. So in this case, it's writing a CTM Lambda function. And then this CTM Lambda function, as meta as this is using AskAI to also generate a question to ask about the activity, and it's generating code. It does have one error in the code, but I'll have to look at see why that is there, but it's generating code that in general will function. And as a software engineer, I could look at it and, like I said, I could spot the one error, but then this is code that will get you started basically in writing a Lambda function. I think, Jason, you were using this earlier, right, to test some things out. So I asked it to look at, based on the caller's zip code, which we have just based on their phone number, just tell me what the local weather is there. And it wrote the code flawlessly. It grabbed an open weather API that I guess GPT was aware of. And the only piece of the code that I had to edit was to go in and put my actual API key for the open weather in, and the rest of the code ran flawlessly, and the Lambda function worked within CTM. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So so this is the idea. So in this case, the idea is that we would be able to start to the real magic here is that this is us indexing your data, indexing your conversation history, and then based on a customer's inquiry, we are locating a document and showing the document to the AI so that it's such that it can respond to you intelligently based on your question. And then as a result, we can provide a reference. So it generated this question or this answer based on looking at this API documentation. And actually, what I can tell you is that is why we are putting a lot more energy into updating our documentation so that this thing can get much better at providing help to our customers as well. And so we hope that we'll be able to offer basically a chatbot like this in a CTM store near you. Probably some good way to say that, but yeah, that's what we're working on. Hopefully that's interesting to everyone. I'll stop sharing.
No, that looks great. And once again, that's something that's still in process, right? We don't have any sort of date yet.
That's not available.
That, right?
That's right. Not available yet to customers, but that same engine will eventually be available as an enhanced version of AskAI as well, built into triggers. because it has the ability to see and understand much more of a document than a larger it can go past the prompt limits that we see in ChatGPT today by itself.
Oh, wow. Definitely powerful stuff.
So
right.
I think maybe the key takeaway there is this is a fast evolving space, and we are very excited to have AskAI available as a trigger so that you can put it into production today. And that's why we're also offering the 50 free credits of questions to get you going. It included in every account is test credits, so you could go and build the prompt and you could test the prompt and do quite a bit of that before you run out of test credits. As you run it in production and you go back and look at it, that's where we give you the 50 free as well. So I think it's an incredibly good deal and an amazing time to get started using this. I think that as anyone who wants to accelerate their marketing and increase their targeting, now would be the time to do that and be ahead of the curve. I think you will definitely be ahead of the curve because I don't think anybody else is offering this kind of capability built in today.
Thank you. All right. So with that being said, got one more poll for everyone here. So our question is, after this webinar, how likely are you to adopt AI for your business? So I'm very interested to see what people say. Todd, thank you, by the way, for giving everyone a sneak peek at the up and coming.
You're welcome. Happy to do that. Keeps me up late at night working away. It's very fun.
That I believe. All right, let's take a look here. Seems like most folks are in. So right now, looks like 67% of the folks are thinking about it. Some say I'm installing it right now. And a few say not very or not at all. So great insight. Thank you everyone for that. So before we get to opening it up to any final questions, we do want to remind everyone, take advantage of the offer for the free asks. It ends on May 31st. We will be sending out a copy of the recording of this webinar to email as long as you've registered. And if you haven't already, you can still text 240-492-7524 to get your free swag item. All right, and with that being said, we're going to go ahead and open it up for any last questions people might have. So let's take a look and see if anyone has anything. At this time, folks, you can use the Q&A section in Zoom if you would like to ask a question, either Jason or Todd.
Oh, okay. I see questions coming in. Yeah.
Is Chris Nally really Nick Offerman wearing a mask? Fun fact, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, he's actually an AI. He's an AI generated version of him.
That's right.
We got you guys.
Is this included with our subscription or an extra charge?
So it is. It's a per. I think Dan is answering to this via chat, but it's a per question fee. So each time you ask a question, there's a small charge. I want to say if you're on the plan everybody should be on, it's 2 cents. If you're on one of the other plans, it's probably more expensive. Yeah.
On the Connect plan, it's 2 cents. On the on the growth plan, it is 4 cents per question. And then it does also assume. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's why I don't understand why anyone would not be on the Connect plan. It's just everything's cheaper. It's just
it's the way to go for sure.
I don't know.
The next question was, are we able to easily see how many API calls we've used?
Yes. So just today, in fact, actually, we have rolled out usage reporting. So you'll find usage reports in an account usage report. It'll show you how many questions have been asked. In the agency dashboard, it'll show you trends of usage as well. So yeah, we are working hard on getting all the capabilities there for you. Like I demoed you can use AskAI instead of a Lambda function. So that's pretty sweet. Yeah, so this idea of accents. So it's really important to distinguish here. So there are two things, right? So there's the transcription, the text, the converting the conversation into text. That's the transcription process. And we continue to make that process better. We've had that for years, and it has gotten vastly better. So like its ability to understand different types of accents, Southern ones, different types of accents of all kinds. Yes, it's getting better every day. I think we're actually should have an updated transcription model released maybe the next couple of weeks that apparently improves everything. So, but it does this every couple of months. It gets better. But the actual AskAI component, it's operating on the transcription text. So one of the nice things about that is even if the transcription is not that good all the time, the AI actually can usually understand it, because one of the tricks people are doing now to make their transcriptions better is they're running them through an AI to correct the transcription before they serve it up. So yeah,
it is pretty forgiving. I've seen some incredible examples of where people read an email address and like I would have a hard time interpreting what the email that they gave from the transcription, but the AskAI seems to flawlessly output it. So it is pretty forgiving on garbled audio and thick accents and things.
So we have another question asking us if customers are able to use the SMS feature for their clients like we used at the beginning of this webinar when we asked them to text a question to get some CTM swag.
Yeah, I think so, right, Jason? You used AskAI to build that, right?
Yeah, I had some middleware with it, so I didn't just use the normal trigger, but I think we could get there with pushing the body of the SMS to a field.
Yeah.
Let's
you
talk.
can actually,
I'm happy to talk through it.
So you can evaluate. So the AskAI trigger can operate on a text message. So it will be past the text message body. So you can have that used to then populate and generate a response. But I do think
into a custom field and then respond with a token for that field.
Right. But I think that we probably should make a more natural way of doing it. So we'll probably have a trigger or a response mechanism in place here soon. Yeah. That makes it easy to do that. Yeah. It's so like what we're saying is it's doable today, but let's make it easier.
Yep.
Absolutely. All right. So I don't see anything else in the Q&A.
Yeah, no one else is putting questions there. I do see there's a lot of chatter on the chat though. Folks aren't. Yeah, you guys should put your questions here in the Q&A. That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Yep. Dan has been doing a great job taking care of our customers in the chat, fortunately.
Crushing it. Yeah. How much? Oh, here's the question. How much is the ask for marketing plan? It's a good question.
I think it's 4 cents. I think that's the equivalent of the growth plan. I believe it's 4 cents per question.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, honestly, look at your thoughts there on the plans, because the monthly fee on the Connect plan is more, but it's a constant, whereas the usage is a variable, and the usage fees on the Connect plan are much less. You'll probably save money. Yeah.
Excellent.
All right.
So we're nearing the end of our time here. Did anyone have any other questions they'd like to ask our team here? If not, don't forget, by the way, folks, you can email us. I know we've thrown that out a few times, but please feel free to reach out to us with any follow-up questions. Like we said before, you are going to get an email with recording. And last but not least, I'd like to thank everyone that made this webinar possible today. Jason, Tom, thank you for coming, and everyone from our marketing and other teams for participating and helping us out.
Yeah.
And obviously,
it's pretty cool.
Thank you, customers. Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Chris.
Fantastic. Thanks, everybody.
All right, folks. You guys all have a great day, and thanks again for coming.